Okay, so get ready because we are diving deep, deep into Vedic astrology today.
Sounds good.
We're going to be looking at what happens when planets find themselves hanging out with Rahu.
Right.
And I know you're already pretty familiar with how planets interact in astrology,
Yeah,
but today we're zeroing in on Rahu.
of course.
You know, that shadow planet with a reputation for shaking things up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, it's like dropping a wild card into this already super intricate cosmic
Oh,
dance.
I love that analogy. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
And to help us visualize this cosmic dance,
Mhm.
we actually have an image we're looking at that lays out each planet's conjunction with Rahu.
Right.
And I have to say, some of these descriptions they're pretty evocative. Like, one that caught my eye was Sun, a king dethroned by his arrogance.
Oh, wow.
And then there's Venus, a beautiful flower poisoned at the roots.
Yeah, yeah.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of these conjunctions,
Okay.
can you give us a quick refresher on what Rahu actually is
Absolutely. Yeah.
for those of us who might not be as well versed?
Yeah, yeah. So Rahu, it's not a planet in the traditional sense, like we think of,
All right, right,
like Mars or Jupiter. It doesn't have that physical body.
right.
It's what we call a shadow planet in Vedic astrology.
Uh-huh.
It's basically a point in space that represents the moon's north node,
Gotcha.
and it's associated with desire, illusion, ambition, that kind of relentless urge to chase what we think we want, even if it leads us down some pretty unexpected paths.
So it's kind of like a cosmic reality check waiting to happen.
Precisely, yeah. And that brings us to these conjunctions, right?
Right.
Because when a planet is conjunct with Rahu, it's like their energies get amplified and challenged at the same time.
They're being put to the test.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of stuck on that king dethroned by his arrogance imagery
Right. Right?
when it comes to the sun conjunct Rahu.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit more for us? What's the deeper story there?
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating, right? Because the sun at its core is about our core identity, our vitality, our leadership, right?
Right, right.
But when Rahu gets in the mix, that drive, that inherent, solar drive can become, I guess, kind of hyper-focused on external validation. It's like,
Validation from others rather than from within.
exactly, yeah, like someone who's born to lead, right? They have that natural charisma,
Yeah.
but they're constantly battling this inner hunger for recognition, and it can lead them to push too hard, too fast.
So how would that? I mean, I imagine that can manifest in different ways depending on where the sun is in their birth chart, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like what areas of life would we see that play out?
Yeah, you're right. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
Right.
The house placement is really important, right? So if that Sun-Rahu conjunction is, say, in the 10th house, which is the house of career, you might see it play out really differently than if it was in, say, the 4th house, which is more about home and family.
Oh.
Right. So one person might be, a real go-getter in their career, maybe even a little ruthless,
Right.
while someone else might have more of that need for validation and recognition in their personal life from their family.
Wow. So it's not so even though it's the same conjunction, the way it actually shows up can be vastly different.
Exactly. And that's why, you can't just look at one aspect in isolation. You have to look at the whole chart.
Right. It's about the whole picture, the whole map.
Exactly.
So it sounds like with all of these conjunctions and particularly with Rahu being part of the equation,
Yeah.
it's not always a bad thing.
Oh, absolutely not. No, no, not at all. It's just energy, right? And like any energy, it can be used constructively or destructively.
Right.
It depends on how you work with it.
And how much self-awareness you have.
Exactly. Yeah. Self-awareness is key.
So with that Sun Rahu conjunction, are there positive expressions of that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
What would that look like?
Well, think about it. If you have all that ambition and drive, but you're also self-aware enough to channel it constructively,
Mm-hmm.
you could achieve incredible things.
Like what kind of things? Give me an example.
Well, think about visionary leaders, right? People who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, who have those big, bold ideas and the drive to make them happen.
So they're using that desire for recognition for good.
Exactly. It's about aligning your ambition with a higher purpose.
I like that. It's not about suppressing the energy. It's about working with it, not letting it control you.
Exactly. And that's really the key with all of these Rahu conjunctions. It's about understanding the shadow side, but also recognizing the potential.
Right, right.
It's about finding that balance.
Speaking of intense energy, I'm looking back at the image here, and it describes the moon conjunct Rahu as a turbulent ocean tossed by shifting tides. That sounds emotionally charged.
Yeah,
What's going on there?
yeah, the moon is all about our emotional world, right? Our sense of security, our need for connection.
Okay.
And then when you add Rahu's disruptive energy into the mix, well, it can create this heightened sensitivity, almost like you're experiencing emotions on a much larger scale.
So everything's amplified.
Exactly. Yeah, you feel everything more deeply, but you also have less control over it.
It's like those emotional waves are just crashing down.
Yeah. Exactly. It can be really overwhelming, really intense.
And that image of a turbulent ocean, it really fits.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
So how does someone with this conjunction, how do they navigate those emotional ups and downs?
Well, self-awareness is key, right? Like we were saying with the sun, if you understand your emotional patterns, you can start to work with them.
Right.
Things like meditation, journaling, even just taking some time for yourself to reflect can be really helpful.
So they can kind of anticipate those waves, maybe even prepare for them.
Exactly. And having some healthy coping mechanisms for stress is crucial because this conjunction can make someone more susceptible to anxiety.
So it's like having those tools in your toolbox ready to go when things get rough.
Yeah, exactly.
So taking a moment to pause and breathe before reacting can make all the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge.
So it's not all doom and gloom, right? Even with moon conjunct Rahu.
Oh, not at all. Like I said, it's just energy, right? And that intense emotional energy can also be a source of great empathy and intuition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people with this conjunction might be drawn to creative fields or, healing professions where they can channel that emotional depth.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
so it's about finding those outlets, finding those healthy ways to express those emotions.
Exactly.
Speaking of Venus, we talked about the beautiful flower poisoned at the roots.
Yeah.
What's the deal with Venus conjunct Rahu?
Right. So Venus is all about beauty, love, pleasure, our values, right? The things we find beautiful and pleasurable. But with Rahu's influence, those desires can become a bit distorted.
Okay.
It's like you might have this insatiable desire for beauty, but it's never enough, you know? You're constantly changing your appearance, always seeking something more.
It's like that myth of King Midas,
Yes.
where everything he touched turned to gold, but he couldn't find true satisfaction.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It's like you have all the beauty and pleasure you could ever want, but it doesn't bring you true happiness.
And it could be the same with love, right? Like always seeking validation from external sources.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that constant need for more, more, more without ever really finding fulfillment from within.
So it's about recognizing those patterns.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and realizing that true fulfillment, it has to come from within.
Exactly. And that's where the self-awareness comes in again, right? Because once you understand these patterns, you can start to make different choices.
You can break free.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
can choose to cultivate self-love, to find satisfaction in the present moment.
It's like you said earlier, it's all about understanding how these energies play out in our lives and then making conscious choices about how we navigate them.
Precisely. Astrology at its core, it's about understanding ourselves better.
Hmm.
Your birth chart, it's not a cage, it's a roadmap.
Okay, I like that.
It shows you your potential, your challenges, and ultimately it empowers you to make choices that align with your highest self.
What a powerful, powerful thought to leave us with.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us.
Of course, my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.